In October 2025, freelance photographer Ryan Mercer traveled to a remote area of northern England to photograph abandoned villages. The region was known for old stone cottages, forgotten roads, and stories passed down through generations. Ryan had spent years documenting places that most people overlooked: empty schools, abandoned churches, old railway stations. He wasn't interested in ghost stories. He was interested in history. On his second day in the area, an elderly man at a small cafe mentioned a road that didn't appear on most maps. "You'll find it if the fog comes in," the man said. Ryan laughed politely. The man didn't. "It's there," he continued. "But if you find the house at the end of it, don't stay after dark." The warning sounded like local folklore. Exactly the kind of story people told tourists. Still, Ryan wrote down the location. That afternoon, heavy fog rolled across the countryside. Visibility dropped quickly. While driving along a narrow country lane, Ryan noticed something unusual: a small road branching away from the main route. It wasn't marked on his GPS. Curious, he turned onto it. The road twisted through open fields and patches of woodland. After several minutes, he saw a house, standing completely alone. It was a large stone building surrounded by overgrown grass. No nearby farms. No power lines. No vehicles. Just the house. Ryan parked and grabbed his camera. The front gate hung slightly open. As he approached, he noticed something strange. The building didn't look abandoned. The windows were clean. The garden, although overgrown, showed signs of recent maintenance. Someone seemed to care for the property, yet there was no sign of anyone living there. Ryan photographed the exterior: the front porch, the old chimney, the weathered stone walls. Everything seemed normal. Then he noticed movement behind an upstairs window. A figure, standing perfectly still, watching him. Ryan raised his camera. The figure disappeared. He lowered the camera and waited. Nothing happened. Eventually, he convinced himself it had been a curtain moving in the wind. As evening approached, he decided to leave. But when he returned to his car, he found something resting beneath the windshield wiper. A photograph. An old black and white photograph. The image showed the house exactly as it appeared now. Same windows. Same front door. Same gate. On the back, written in faded ink, were 5 words: "You shouldn't have come here." Ryan looked around. The fields were empty. The road behind him was deserted. There was no one in sight. Yet someone had placed the photograph on his car without him noticing. As the fog thickened around the property, Ryan felt a growing sense of unease. And then he noticed one final detail. In the photograph, a man was standing in the upstairs window, watching the camera, watching him. Ryan stood beside his car, staring at the old photograph. The fog drifted silently across the fields. The image in his hands showed the same house, the same gate, the same upstairs window, and the same figure standing behind the glass. What bothered him wasn't the figure itself. It was the age of the photograph. The paper was yellowed. The corners were worn. It looked decades old. Yet the house appeared exactly as it did today. Not newer, not older. Exactly the same. Ryan carefully placed the photograph in his backpack and climbed into his car. He started the engine. The headlights illuminated the narrow road ahead. But as he prepared to leave, curiosity got the better of him. He wanted one last photograph. One final shot before driving away. He stepped out once more and raised his camera toward the house. The flash illuminated the front of the building. For a split second, everything looked normal. Then he heard a sound. A sharp knock, coming from inside the house. Ryan lowered the camera. Another knock echoed through the silence. Then another. Slow. Deliberate. As if someone was striking wood from deep inside the building. The sound stopped. The house became silent again. Ryan stood frozen. Part of him wanted to leave immediately. The other part wanted answers. Against his better judgment, he walked toward the front door. The old wooden steps creaked beneath his boots. He reached the entrance. The door stood slightly open, just enough to reveal darkness beyond. Ryan pushed gently. The hinges groaned. A cold draft flowed from inside. The air smelled of dust and old wood. Yet something felt wrong. The house didn't look abandoned. There were no broken walls, no collapsed ceilings, no signs of decay. Instead, it looked as if someone had simply left a few hours earlier. A coat hung beside the entrance. A clock rested on a shelf. A lamp stood on a small table. Everything seemed untouched. Ryan moved deeper inside. His flashlight swept across faded wallpaper and narrow hallways. Then he noticed framed photographs covering one wall. Dozens of them, all black and white, all showing different visitors standing outside the house. Men, women, families, travelers. Each photograph looked decades old. Some appeared to date back to the 1940s. Others looked newer. But every image contained the same detail. The same figure standing upstairs behind the window. Watching. Always watching. Ryan's pulse quickened. He moved closer. Then he saw something that made him stop. One empty frame hung near the end of the hallway. A small handwritten label rested beneath it. The date written on the label was today's date. Tomorrow's newspaper would not exist yet. Tomorrow's photographs could not exist yet. Yet the empty frame seemed to be waiting for one. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked upstairs. Ryan looked toward the staircase. Another creak followed. Then another. Slow footsteps. Moving across the upper floor. Directly above him. Someone was in the house. Someone who hadn't. The whisper echoed through the hallway. "You're late." Ryan stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs. The voice had come from upstairs. For a moment, he considered leaving. But he had already come too far. Slowly, he climbed the staircase. The old wood creaked beneath his boots. The upper floor was colder than the rest of the house. At the end of the hallway, one door stood open. A faint light filled the room beyond. Ryan stepped inside. The room looked untouched. An old desk stood beside the window. On top of it rested a large leather-bound book. Curious, Ryan opened it. It was a guest book. The pages were filled with names dating back decades. 1948, 1949, 1950, 1951, 1952. Every entry ended with the same sentence. "I found the house." Ryan continued turning pages. Then he reached the final one. His heart skipped a beat. At the top of the page was his own name. Ryan Mercer, written in dark ink. Alongside today's date. He stared at it in disbelief. He had never signed the book. Yet his name was already there. A cold breeze moved through the room. The pages suddenly flipped by themselves. When they stopped, Ryan noticed a photograph hidden between them. He pulled it free. The image showed the house from earlier that day. His car was parked outside. The front gate stood open. And there, in the yard, was Ryan himself. Someone had photographed him without his knowledge. Then he looked toward the upstairs window. The same mysterious figure stood behind the glass. Ryan moved closer to the photograph. His hands began to shake. The figure wasn't a stranger. It was him. The same face. The same jacket. The same camera hanging from his shoulder. A loud bang echoed from downstairs. The front door had slammed shut. The house suddenly felt different. Older. Abandoned. Dust covered the furniture. The wallpaper peeled from the walls. The room looked as if no one had entered it for decades. Ryan backed away from the desk. The guest book was gone. The photograph vanished from his hands. Only the empty room remained. Panic finally took over. Ryan ran from the room, down the staircase, and through the dark hallway. He burst through the front door and sprinted toward his car. Minutes later, he was driving away through the fog. He never looked back. The following morning, Ryan returned with two local historians. He wanted proof. He wanted someone else to see the house. But when they reached the location, there was nothing there. No house. No road. No gate. Only an empty field stretching across the countryside. The historians insisted no building had ever existed on that land. Years have passed since that night. Ryan still keeps the old photograph left beneath his windshield wiper. Sometimes he studies the upstairs window. And every time he does, the figure standing there seems a little clearer. Still watching. Still waiting.